understand your director, are you going to have trouble? If we do not understand the curriculum, is that dangerous? If we do not understand the person who owns our house, if we rent our house, is that a problem? So we all have, it's too loud, we all have an internal understanding of where power rests. So instead of constantly, as early Marxism did, looking at class, working class, workers, emancipation, critical theory said, no, that's just one part of power is class. But that if we start to understand all of power and understand how power works, we can negotiate the universe. And that's what Paulo did when he worked with the peasants in Recife. He understood that even though they couldn't read or write in Brazilian Portuguese, they were able to read the world and understand who they were. From this philosophy, he started to look at very poor, oppressed people. And he realized that the true teaching, the true pedagogy of poor people was not reading and writing. The true literacy of poverty is to understand that they are indeed poor. I'm not doing this. That they are indeed poor, but once they understand their position as poor, they are able to change it. When we don't understand our oppression, as a woman, I understand, and I'm not, I'm not from here, but I understand in my country that many times women are still part of an oppressed group of people. They're oppressed because they make 30% less money than men do. They're oppressed because they don't lead countries. How many women presidents has the United States had? How many vice presidents has the United States had? When you look at a country that's 250 years old that hasn't had a woman, then I would say that there is a part of being female that is lesser than being male as far as power goes. I know that when the world banks fall apart and money plunges, and then houses are worth much less money than they were, and all of a sudden people can't get money out of the bank machine, I know that banks have power. So that critical theory tells us to look in our discipline how power works. So if you are a chemist or an environmentalist, and you're working with looking at rainforest and the loss of animals and insects and plants, you have to understand the economics of who's behind that. And you've got to understand that corporate power is a very large power. Now, when Marx was writing, there wasn't corporate power. There was only one kind of power, and that was governmental power. And maybe if we were in certain Catholic countries, the church was incredibly powerful. But for the most part, Marxism was a very simple, brilliant, but simple theory, because at that time, power was located really in only a couple places. But power has now been replaced, and all the theorists before us never realized what media and corporate power would do. And so we have to understand that the use of critical theory today allows us to understand how power has changed our world. I think technology is a power that is the power that's over me. I understand that sometimes I can do things very fast, but other times it takes me a lot longer because of the power of technology. I know that bureaucracy is, to me, more complicated because of technology. Before it was a piece of paper and a pencil. Now I sound like an old woman. But now I have to go through 5 or 6 times on one form because I'm always doing it wrong. Because I own an Apple, and because Apple doesn't always use the forms that are made by Microsoft. So now you see that the power rests with 2 companies. And we have to understand which power we can use in order to access and make our world easier. So Paul took this thought and applied it to poverty and disenfranchised people. In the notion of radical The idea of radical love, to me, is an important concept of looking at ways of seeing the world with basic needs. The relationships of basic needs. The ability to understand identity. How many of you find that the discussion of identity is becoming more and more important in the world? Absolutely. Absolutely. So as you said, power within ourselves, understanding identity, becomes incredibly important. That's part of emancipation. Facilitating that is a part of a notion of radical love. It's not just teaching the curriculum. It's not just teaching how to work with power, but it's also teaching that deep empowerment, the ability to be emancipated, as Shirley talks about, by understanding our own identity. The ability to become, the idea of rootedness, and I don't know if I translated it well in Spanish. Do you see the 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 down?
Yeah.
Is that rooted? Does that make sense?
Yeah.
The ability to feel like we belong somewhere. And often in many of our countries, indigenous people, poor people, migrant people, immigrant people,